Hello and welcome to ARIRANG News, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Hwang Sung-hee. The stories we're following at this hour. Following the massacre at French satirical weekly Charlie Hebdo, police comb a vast wooded area and small villages north of Paris, hoping to find the two suspects. Fears of another global financial crisis soar in the face of tumbling crude oil prices and jitters over the prospect of Greece leaving the eurozone. New satellite pictures show that North Korea is upgrading a submarine to make it capable of firing ballistic missiles. We get an expert's view on the prospects of North Korean provocations in the new year. But first, our top story this afternoon. The two men believed responsible for the deadly attack at the offices of a French magazine are still on the loose and are thought to be hiding out in the vast forest north of Paris. In one of the largest police operations ever seen in France, tens of thousands of officers are combing the area, hoping to find the suspects before they can do any more damage. Park Ji-won has more.
Police have been searching door to door in a forested area north of Paris following reports that the two main suspects had been spotted there. There are also reports they robbed a gas station in the area. Police have warned local residents that brothers Sharif and Said Kouachi, 32 and 34 years old respectively, are heavily armed and extremely dangerous. While tens of thousands of police and several helicopters continued their search for the men, 9 people with close ties to them have been detained for further investigation. Another suspect, 18-year-old Hamid Murad, gave himself in at a police station early Thursday. So far, no group has claimed responsibility for the attack. However, AP reports citing a senior U.S. official that the two brothers have links to a Yemeni terrorist network, and the older brother had traveled to Yemen in the past. The news agency also reports that the two were on the U.S. government's no-fly list. In a separate incident Thursday, a policewoman was fatally gunned down in a southern suburb of Paris by a suspect described as wearing black and a bulletproof vest. However, authorities say they found no link between this incident and the assault on the Charlie Hebdo magazine. France held a moment of silence at noon local time on a rare day of national mourning for the 12 victims of the attack, as well as for the free speech they stood for. The Eiffel Tower was also dimmed for a time at 8 p.m. as a vigil continued at a Place de la République. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
A tribute paid with the pen, that's what cartoonists from all over the world are doing following the massacre at the office of Charlie Hebdo on Wednesday. They have come together to demonstrate that freedom of speech will prevail and that such attacks will never keep them from breaking out their pens. Lee Ji-yoon has more.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. French leading broadsheet Le Monde posted an image that says wholeheartedly with Charlie Hebdo and promised to do all it can to keep the tragedy-stricken magazine up and running. Australian cartoonist David Pope's image went viral on social media. His image shows a gunman standing over to a dead cartoonist and justifying his action by saying he drew first. Pope says nothing justifies the brutal and shocking massacre. Many of the cartoons spoke on behalf of the victims and stood up for free speech. The Telegraph's cartoonist Christian Adams was one of them. His published product shows no illustration and is titled Extremist Approved Cartoon. This one is by an American political cartoonist Rob Torno. It shows sharpened pencils and pens being pointed against their attacker. Torno wrote a commentary on the massacre, saying the cartoonists at Charlie Hebdo gave their lives to advance freedom of expression. French London-based illustrator Lucille Clark's image shows the solidarity of her colleagues. This image was liked over 82,000 times on Instagram. Posting the image, Clark writes, "Break 1,000 will rise." Just like that, cartoonists from all over the world mourn the deaths of their fallen colleagues, but promise not to back down in the face of violence. Lee Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
There's fresh evidence North Korea is able to or very close to having submarines that are capable of firing ballistic missiles. Given the level of stealth submarines have as they glide underwater, such a breakthrough would pose a significant security threat to South Korea, Japan, and even the United States. Hwang Sung-hee reports.
Satellite pictures posted on 38 North show North Korea is upgrading a submarine to make it capable of firing missiles. The U.S.-based website devoted to analysis of North Korea says a rectangular opening around 4 meters long and 2 meters wide can be seen on the submarine, which sat in the North Simpo South shipyard at the time the photos were taken. Satellite imagery analyst Joseph Bermudez says the hole probably contains launch tubes that could fire up to 2 missiles. Once the process is complete, the ship may then be tested for land attack missile technology. If the analysis turns out to be correct, then North Korea's submarine development has taken a significant stride forward, posing a bigger threat to South Korea, Japan, and U.S. bases in the region, given that submarines are much harder to detect than other pieces of military hardware. It would also mean a whole new level of missile defense planning for nations at risk. However, experts believe North Korea still lacks technological experience, and constructing missile-capable ships would be expensive and very time-consuming. Although there appears to be no immediate threat, satellite imagery also showed workers moving around the shipyard's facility over the past 6 months. This raises concerns Pyongyang is actively working on a possible naval construction program. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
And there are mixed signals out of Seoul and Washington about how advanced or not North Korea's nuclear missile technology is. The U.S. State Defense Department says there's no hard evidence that shows Pyongyang has the technological capacity to develop miniaturized nuclear warheads that are small enough to fit into ballistic missiles. Earlier this week, the South Korean Defense Ministry said in its white paper that North Korea is closing in on mastering the technology. This could become a huge security threat, since if Pyongyang was able to make miniaturized warheads, they could technically be attached to ballistic missiles, which could potentially hit the U.S. mainland. And it's been 4 years since the United States sent aid to North Korea, and it seems that streak will extend into a 5th. A spokesperson for U.S. aid, which is in charge of administering foreign aid to civilians, says there are no plans in the 2015 fiscal budget to provide any type of humanitarian assistance to North Korea. Washington last sent aid to Pyongyang in 2011 following a massive typhoon and monsoon rain there. It came in the form of $1.5 million to 3 private organizations that provided food and medical aid. So where is North Korea headed with its nuclear program, and what should the U.S. do about it? For an expert's view, I spoke with Joel Witt, senior fellow at the U.S.-Korea Institute at SAIS, who currently runs the 38 North website and served as an official at the State Department for 15 years. Take a look. So in his New Year speech, Kim Jong-un expressed his desire to mend ties with South Korea. He even suggested an inter-Korean summit. But at the same time, he made clear he has no plans to end Pyongyang's nuclear program and demanded an end to joint South Korea-U.S. military exercises. So how do you assess his speech?
Well, I think it would be right to be very cautious in our assessment of what he said. He did offer that olive branch, but there are a lot of conditions that are attached. And the bigger issue here is that there's not going to be any resolution to the nuclear problem without an active American involvement in solving this whole problem. And right now, the U.S. administration really isn't involved at all.
In less than 2 months, South Korea and the U.S. will be conducting their joint military drills. If the Koreas don't make any progress by then, do you expect to see North Korea launch another provocation?
Once again, you're asking me to make a prediction, and so what I would say is that at the moment, there is no sign, at least, of preparations for a long-range missile test or even a nuclear test. Whether they would launch other types of provocations, I really don't know, but I would point out that experts repeatedly predict provocations and are wrong most of the time.
So given North Korea's steady progress in building up its nuclear capabilities, what steps should the United States and its allies take this year to cope with Pyongyang's nuclear threats?
Well, I think it's very clear, at least to me, that American policy is in disarray, and our coordination with South Korea in order to have the maximum effect on the North is not very good. The first step here is that in Washington, we need to conduct a full-scale review of American policy towards North Korea. The chances of success may be not so great, but nevertheless, the way we're approaching this problem now has clearly failed. I'm talking about a full-scale review that looks at not only the diplomatic track and what might and might not be possible there, but also a more reasonable, measured, and effective approach on sanctions, and also looking at the trends over the next 5 years in North Korea's WMD programs and making sure that we take the security steps necessary to protect ourselves.
Do you foresee a shift in Washington's policy towards Pyongyang in the coming months?
I'm very skeptical. I think the administration has other issues that it's focused on. And also, I think the administration has basically given up on trying to deal with North Korea, aside from occasionally slapping sanctions on Pyongyang. So I'm very skeptical about that. Nevertheless, one way of perhaps encouraging Washington to shift would be for South Korea to take a greater role in pushing the Obama administration to become more active. I know a number of us were hoping for that when President Park was elected, but that hasn't happened so far. And without an active American involvement in dealing with North Korea, I'm very skeptical South Korea can get very far, particularly on the issues that at least we care about, which is the security threat posed by North Korea.
Thank you, Mr. Wi, for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Tumbling oil prices and fears of Greece's possible exit from the eurozone could spell trouble for global financial markets. An index that measures risk aversion in markets around the world has soared to levels not seen since the 2008 global financial crisis and the U.S. credit rating downgrade in 2011. Kim Min-ji reports.
The world's financial markets are on edge, with risk soaring to levels seen during the global financial crisis of 2008. The Citi Macro Risk Index, which measures risk aversion in global financial markets, rose to 0.96 this week on a scale of 0 to 1. The index, indicating riskier market conditions when approaching 1, tracks various financial data, including stock market volatility and bond rates in the U.S. and other emerging economies. The high rating stems from the dip in crude prices that began in mid-2014 and fears that it could spell financial trouble for emerging markets. Greece's possible exit from the eurozone is another factor. It is rare that the index soars to above the 0.9 mark. The current level matches previous records seen during the 2008 financial crisis and after the 2011 downgrade of U.S. credit rating. The uncertain future of Greece and a prolonged recession in the eurozone, coupled with global crude prices falling below the psychologically important $50 mark, suggest markets will remain unstable for some time to come. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG NEWS.
Indonesian search teams have begun preparations to begin lifting the tail of the ill-fated AirAsia Flight 8501, now at the bottom of the Java Sea. This for better access to the black boxes that hold the data and voice recorders to help investigators determine why the plane disappeared off radar last month. An Indonesian search team loaded a helicopter with balloons that will be used to help raise the tail section. They will be transported to the search vessels on standby near the site where the wreckage was found. So far, small debris and 44 bodies have been recovered, mostly from the water's surface. South Korea has completely ruled out co-hosting the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics with North Korea. Spokesman for the presidential office of Cheongwade, Min Kyung-uk, says the government will not be co-hosting the event with any other nation, and that includes the North. There had been speculation South Korea might make an offer to the North, as Seoul has been looking to open up high-level dialogue and improve relations with Pyongyang. On Thursday, South Korea's unification minister Ryu Gil-jae flatly denied that any co-hosting offer would be made during the talks. Last month, North Korea offered to host some of the Olympic events at its Masikryang ski resort. The proposal came after the International Olympic Committee announced plans that it would allow host cities to share events with other countries to save costs. The improvement in consumer sentiment in Korea has prompted Koreans to put a bit more on their credit and debit cards. The Credit Finance Association of Korea says combined spending of $45 billion was made through credit and debit cards in November last year, up 5% from a year earlier. During the same period, the number of card payments jumped more than 14% to over 1 billion. In particular, payments at local convenience stores topped $512 million, setting a record high. The amount spent buying Korean cars jumped 42% to nearly $2.5 billion, largely due to falling crude prices. Riding the new wave of popularity in webtoons, Korea's online-based cultural contents market is poised for massive growth over the next 3 years. The KT Economic Research Institute says the market size of the industry will double to $800 million by 2018. The institute took added value into account when making the forecast, such as character licensing, messenger emoticons, and the export of contents. In order for the industry to grow to $1 billion in size, the report suggests establishing a global distribution channel, either by launching a new platform or through existing smartphone app stores. So last week, we gave you a brief look at how Korean cinema fared in 2014, but now it's time to look ahead to what this year has in store. Joining us for a preview of what to look forward to in 2015 is our film critic, Piers Conran.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Piers. So what are some of the big titles to look forward to?
Well, I mean, starting already with this month, it's already looking to be a pretty interesting month. There's two pretty big movies coming, and the first of those is A Chronicle of a Blood Merchant, which comes out next week. It's based on a Chinese novel, and it's set in the 50s Korea in 1950s. They've changed the setting from China. And it's about a village where men must sell their blood to prove their health before they're allowed to be married. The film stars Ha Jung-woo and Ha Ji-won, both very big stars. And Ha Jung-woo also serves as the director of the film. This is his second time behind the camera after 2013's Fasten Your Seatbelt. The second film is Gangnam Blues, which is a film that people have been looking forward to for a while. It's it's set in the 1970s. It deals with the redevelopment of Gangnam during that time. And it's from Yoo Ha, who is a director who made previously A Dirty Carnival, another very famous gangster film. And it stars Lee Min-ho, who is, of course, famous from TV shows such as The Heirs and City Hunter.
Well, that definitely sounds like a great start to the new year. Do we have any new films to look forward to for the Lunar New Year?
Absolutely. I mean, Lunar New Year is one of the busiest times for theaters. So, of course, there will be a number of new releases. Currently, only 2 are confirmed, though I imagine that number will go up in the coming weeks. And of those, one of them is the first major period film of the year. There's 7 so far confirmed. And that movie is Detective K, Secret of the Lost Island. It's a sequel to the first Detective K film from a few years ago, and it reunites the director with his star Kim Young-min, who plays this kind of bumbling detective live in the Joseon era, and he's back with his sidekick Oh Dal-soo, who's currently in the film Ode to My Father. The other big movie, which is from CJ Entertainment, that first one is from Showbox, is C'est si bon, which is set in the 1960s. It's a biopic of the famous folk band Twin Folio, and this kind of deals with their beginnings as a band. It stars Jung-woo and Han Hyo-joo, as well as Kim Yoon-suk and Kim Hye. Those latter two actors play the same characters in the 1980s.
Well, Pierce, last year was already a big year for period films, but you're saying we have 7 on the way in 2015?
Absolutely. I know it sounds like a lot. We had a lot last year already, but I mean, they've done very, very well. Looking at kind of the big hits of the year, Roaring Currents became the most successful film of all time. Films like The Pirates did extremely well. Also, Kundo and The Fatal Encounter were all significant hits. So it seems that it's not a trend that's dying out just yet, but one imagines that audiences will eventually tire, and we'll have to see if that comes to play this year.
Well, what are some other period films that we have lined up for this year?
I hope I can remember them all. Well, starting out, there's the film Memories of the Sword, which was actually expected to come out late last year. It's an action film with Jeon Do-yeon and Lee Byung-hun, so very, very big casting there. And beyond that, we have the pansori drama The Hymn with Ri Sung-young and Bae Suzy. We also have the King's Court drama The Throne, which is from the big director Lee Joo-nik, who made The King and the Clown, another very famous period film, and that stars Song Kang-ho, a huge star, and Yoo Ah-in. Then there's the kind of steamy drama Empire of Lust of Shin Ha-gyun and Jang Hyuk. And then we have the hunter action drama The Great Tiger with Chae Min-sik, although that's not quite a period film. It's set at the beginning of the 19th century. And then we have the period thriller Treacherous Retainer, starring Kim Gang-woo and Joo Ji-hoon.
Well, that definitely sounds a lot to take in. Are there any other major films to look out for? Absolutely. Actually, last year there weren't so many big films from some of the big major filmmakers, but this year that is definitely going to change. We have new films from Ri Sung-won, In Sang-soo, Na Hong-jin, and Chae Dong-hoon. Action expert Ri Sung-won, who made The Berlin File, is back with Veteran, another detective thriller which stars Hwang Sung-hee, who is now riding high with Ode to My Father. Then we have Chae Dong-hoon, who made The Thieves, is back with Assassination, a 1930s Shanghai set political assassination thriller starring Ha Jung-woo, Jeon Ji-hyun, Lee Jung-jae, again very big star casting there. And Na Hong-jin, famous for The Chaser and The Yellow Sea, is back with Goksong, which is yet to settle on an English title, and that once again stars Hwang Jung-min. And lastly, Im Sang-soo, who made the Housemaid remake, is back with My Friendly Villains, which features Ri Sung-bom among others. That sounds like a lot to look forward to. Is there anything that you are particularly excited about? Well, as a big fan of Na Hong-jin, I'm really looking forward to Goksong, and I do think that Veteran and Assassination could be really fun films. In the immediate future, Gangnam Blues is really something I'm looking forward to. A Dirty Carnival, which he made before, is one of my favorite Korean films, so I'm really hoping for something in that line. And then later in the year, The Great Tiger does sound very interesting. Chae Min-sik in a very interesting role, and from the director of The New World, so that could really be something to look forward to. Definitely a lot of movies lined up there. Thanks for the outlook, Pierce. My pleasure.
Happy Friday, everyone. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. Although we had a cold start to the day with sub-zero temperature readings, things are slowly recovering back or even higher than the seasonal average. Now, the frigid cold winds are leaving us and being replaced by a warm front from the west. And as you can see, we have partly cloudy skies now, but more clouds will move in as the day progresses. Now, our weekend weather is looking bright as well, with mild temperatures and no precipitation expected anywhere. However, the cold will turn up again on Monday. And taking a look at the readings for today, Seoul will peak at 2 degrees this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will reach higher at 6 and 8 degrees respectively. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island gets up to 10, Dokdo hits lower at 4, while Mankyungang reaches way below at -6 degrees. Well, that's all for Korea. Now here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that does it for this edition of ARIRANG News. Thanks for watching.